Hi everyone, and welcome to Module 5.3. We're talking about neurotransmitters today. Here are your learning objectives, and here's your vocab. Pause where you need to. So we are talking about neurotransmitters again. We touched on them a little bit in the last video. So just to refresh, they are chemical messengers that travel between one neuron to the next through that synaptic gap. And they control everything that goes on in our brain, and they regulate our thoughts, feelings, help keep us alive, all of those important things. So that was review. So each neurotransmitter fits like a key. The neurotransmitter is like the key, and that dendrite receptor is specific to each neurotransmitter type. And it fits like a key into a lock, and that's how the message gets sent. So here's kind of a close-up of that. You have the terminal buttons or the axon terminals releasing that chemical message, the neurotransmitters, those little blue circles, and those are going into the synaptic gap and being received by the dendrites. And they must be, those specific sites must be the specific sites for dopamine or whatever neurotransmitter it is. So there are 4 neurotransmitters that you need to know. The first one is acetylcholine. So for acetylcholine, you want to remember that it is important for our muscle functions, our learning, and our memory. Muscle, learning, and memory. If there is a low level of acetylcholine, that is correlated with Alzheimer's disease. Remember, correlation doesn't mean causation, though. Dopamine is our pleasure reward. This is not what's written there. Not that what's written there isn't true, but the key with dopamine to remember is that it's part of the pleasure reward processing part of our brain. We will be talking about different illicit and legal drugs in the next few videos, and dopamine plays a part in several of those illicit drugs. An excess of dopamine in the brain is correlated to schizophrenia, and a low level of dopamine is correlated to Parkinson's disease. So serotonin is the next one. This one, I want you to think mood, hunger, sleep. Mood, hunger, and sleep are the big ones. Also arousal, yes. So an undersupply of serotonin, so if it affects your mood, an undersupply of serotonin is linked to depression. So different, if you've ever heard of SSRIs, those are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, meaning they keep serotonin in that synapse so that you experience that mood elevation if you are depressed. The last one that you need to know is GABA. And so for GABA, I want you to remember that it is the major inhibitory neurotransmitter. It slows everything down. An undersupply is linked to seizures and tremors and insomnia. So we're going to be talking, like I said, in a few videos in the future about drugs and neurotransmitters, because all of these neurotransmitters, we have them naturally in our brain, but when someone uses a drug, whether it's certain prescription drugs, certain illicit drugs, or legal drugs, they can actually have an impact on these neurotransmitters. So they can mimic these neurotransmitters, and these are like a key, right? Well, the drug that people use mimics these, and it fits into that lock, even though it's from outside of the body. So your body can create these neurotransmitters on its own, and also people can consume things that bring in these neurotransmitters or mimics of them, fakes of them. So this is just showing you this dopamine pathway. Like I said, we'll talk about this in more detail. Just showing you that similarity, that dopamine is that reward center, pleasure reward, and certain foods or things like cocaine is a good illicit drug example that affect the level of dopamine in your brain. So your takeaways, make sure you know those 4 neurotransmitters and what they're responsible for. Remember that each neurotransmitter fits into a receptor like a unique key, and that some drugs simulate those natural chemical receptors. They're like an extra key that isn't the original. All right, so that sums up Mod 5.3 on neurotransmitters, and I will see you in class. Thanks.